Welcome back, everyone. So let's build out our final actually clearing out the item from this cart. So to do that, what we're going to do is go into our cart context.js. And inside of here, I am going to add yet another function called clear item from cart. And this is going to be a function that is just going to be very similar to our remove item from cart. And here I'm going to call it clear item from cart. Of course, it's going to be including the cart item to remove. And similarly, we're going to call it clear cart item. So let's talk about how to do this. Let's make a third helper function called clear cart item that is going to receive the cart items, because as we know, we need to probably utilize this cart item to give us back the new cart. And then there is the cart item to remove. In fact, we can even be a little bit more explicit. We can call this cart item to clear, because we already did cart item to remove here. This way, at the very least, it's a lot more visually clear for whoever is reading our code. So what we now need to do is think about what we did before. Here, if the quantity matched to 1 for some existing cart item, then we filtered it. So really, this is all we need, this portion of the code. Because all we're doing is we're saying, hey, if the cart item you're trying to clear out from the carts is equal to the cart item that's already there, then just filter it out completely. So this alone is actually all the code we really need. Let's test this out. So let me just make this a one-line return once again. And then down here, we're calling it. We can just add this to our value. And let's import this into our checkout item component. And inside of our checkout item, we need to attach it to this. So in order for us to do that, we need to import in use context from React. And we also need to import in our cart context. And then inside here, I want to pull in clear item from cart equals use context cart context. And then if I just add this as a on click, you know what? Let's do our typical pattern where we create a separate handler and we'll call it our clear item handler, which is equal to a callback that we'll call this, passing in the cart item like so. Then here we can now do on click, which is equal to clear item handler. And now, if we go back to our code, again, we need to include in some items, go back to the checkout. And now if we hit this, there we go. We got rid of all the quantity of that gray brim hat. And as we can see, we've reflected it everywhere possible. So what we need to do left is also attach on the increment and decrement that we previously kept inside of our checkout component. So here we can actually just cut this because we're going to need it anyways. Come over back to our checkout item component and add this on right here. And then what we need to do, beside the quantity for these spans, is also include the arrows. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add 2 divs into this span. And what I'll do is that for each div, I want to give it a class name of arrow. So let's duplicate this on both sides. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to actually add a left and right arrow inside of this. So the way that this works is that you're going to use another similar symbol. This time it's going to be ampersand hashtag 10094 semicolon. This one is for the leftward facing arrow. And then for the rightward facing arrow, you're going to use 95. As for this quantity, we're going to want to make sure to wrap this in a span because we're going to need to style this quantity now so that it accurately shows what we need to show. So here I'm going to give it a class name of value. And what I'm also going to do is now just add the onClick for our arrows. So I'm going to say onClick is equal to, let's create our handlers, const add item handler. And this will just be a callback that calls add item to cart, passing in our cart item. And we'll do the same for the remove item. There we go. Now, if you're wondering why are we creating these outside handlers rather than just putting these anonymous functions directly into these onClick areas, this actually has two purposes. The first one is that if these methods ever change, we have a very clear idea of where these definitions are rather than being inside of our JSX. They're in a place where we know we instantiate and initialize all of our helper functions and anything like that. It's just for code clarity, so it's easier to update these if need be. The other reason is because by doing this, we're actually going to be able to optimize this code later. But I'm going to talk about that later when we get to the optimization step. For now, we're still in just the building functionality step of this code. So let's add these onto the appropriate places. And, the top one is actually going to be the remove item handler. And then the bottom one is going to be the add item handler. So now if we save this, let's just double check in our checkout item styles in here, inside of our quantity and all of these other values, we are indeed adding in the appropriate styles. But let's think a little bit about whether or not we need to update our styles, especially on quantity. So in the quantity, we added in this additional arrow div that contains the left and the right arrow. We want to make sure that whenever somebody hovers over them, we do a cursor pointer. And as for the value in the middle, the reason why we added the value is just so that we can say, oh, give me a left and right margin of 10 pixels. So now if we save this code and we come back, we see that we have a little bit of wonkiness here. So what we need to do here is we need to modify this quantity to have display flex. So that now, there we go. We have everything looking like how we need it to. And we can increment this quantity and we see it reflect appropriately in our cart. And that's it. Everything is working as we expect. Now, before we move on, one last thing to do is to figure out how to correctly display the total. We need to be able to iterate through all of our cart items and figure out what the price is versus the quantity of all of those cart items. So that's my challenge to you. Figure that out, and let's do this last thing together in the next video.